Thank you, Sean. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for having me to join you. There's a saying that the smartest that all go to study business or economy. The not so smart ones go to study engineers. So I'm an engineering background, so I'm very humble listening to the great folks, my colleagues, talking about all this very unclear, very confusing financial matters. I'm going to change gear to give you a different view. Again, John talked about that I'm kind of from the trench or from the front line, tell you some of the war stories. But first, let me introduce you our company so you know where I'm coming from. And then I'll talk about China today. Lots of talks about China rising, whether there's a threat, opportunities, China's renminbi or the exchange rates, manipulating the exchange rates. China has always been the export-led economy. Where does China going? Does that taking all the jobs in U.S. in terms of outsourcing? So I'm going to share with you my humble view and my experience. A little bit of my background to kind of just to show a little bit of a credibility. I'm actually a Canadian. I was born in China. I was brought up in Hong Kong, educated in Taiwan, and then moved to Canada and worked in North America for about 25 years. In 1977, I moved back to Hong Kong. Pretty much on the same day, Hong Kong was returned to China from British colony. And then I worked in China for the last 10 years for a very local indigenous company, Newsoft. And I travel back and forth. Even my voice is still a little bit hoarse. I just returned from China this last Sunday. That was the second trip to China in October. So first, our company, Newsoft, is coming out of from Northeastern University. That's very easy to remember. Our German friends like the name very much. Is Neusoft. It stands actually new. It was founded in 1991. Was the first company when IPO in China, Shanghai Stock Exchange. But in less than 20 years, the company has grown to right now a little bit less than 18,000 employees, about 1,000 overseas, the rest in China. Last year, our revenue is about a little bit over 600 million, including 200 million or so from overseas income. So for every dollar we bring in from overseas, we earn $2 domestically. And that's very important compared to our competitors or other companies doing outsourcing. We are not really doing offshore outsourcing per se, but rather generating our revenue from domestic, China domestic income. As a company, it's also interesting that as a solution provider, we actually make very advanced CT, MRI, X-ray, ultrasound machines. I call them like expensive cars. So they are selling for $250,000 to $1.5 million. We have 3,000 hospitals in China installing our equipment. But of course, we also make smaller wearable devices. And if we have time, we can talk about we're building a universal healthcare systems for many cities in China, monitoring the elderly, the citizens in terms of the heartbeat, their blood pressures, and so on. So as a software company, it's very interesting, like Google have a phone or Microsoft phone, but Newsoft as a software company, you go to those hospitals in China, you will see we have a logo on those equipments. We have over about 70, 80 units of CTs installed in U.S. soil. So the equipments are not only installed in China, but exported in U.S., Europe, and so on. It's also very interesting that we have 3 private universities of our own with 25,000 students. They are majoring only in IT. That's very important because I know Dr. Zhang knows that my heart is trying to bridge the Western Eastern education. So that is a very good cradle or a training ground for all of you St. Mary's to share your experience in China. My talk is about growth. So over the last 18 years, the company's growth coincide with China's growth. So you can see that regardless the asset value, the revenue, the number of employees, and so on. So I pick up one chart. This is actually, you can look at it from YouTube or Google. It is about, it's called the World Gap Mapping by Hans Rosling. And he looks back on the 200 years from 1800. At those days, actually the life expectancies and the GDP. The circles actually represents the number of people or populations. So the big red circles, China, the blue circles, India, and the US, and so on. And as Duke mentioned about, even though today the growth rate in China is pretty high, but still below US and so on. And at a certain point in the future, it will cross. So that's kind of the notion.